Hey guys, so today I have swatches of the You Do Hue collection from China Glaze, which is the Sesame Street collection. This, I believe, is going to be their summer collection. I got these from polishpick.com. They've been there for a little while. I'm not sure if they're available anywhere else as of right now. I haven't seen them anywhere else, and I haven't seen China Glaze advertising them yet, but I do believe they're coming fairly soon. So there are 12 polishes here altogether. So I will link polishpick.com down below, and I will get into the swatches. So before I get into these swatches, I just wanted to talk really quickly about the caps, because the first thing that I noticed was that this yellow polish here didn't have Big Bird on the cap. It seems like they're just kind of put on there randomly. I'm not sure exactly how many characters there are. Out of 12 polishes, I have 3 characters, but I only have one Oscar the Grouch, so I don't know if that means that there are other ones that didn't get put on here, but there is, that I know of, Big Bird, Cookie Monster, and then Oscar the Grouch, which is my favorite, so I'm a little bummed I only have one, but that's okay, it doesn't really matter that much. The first polish is called I Believe In Snuffy, and this is this peachy gold shimmer. So this one is a little bit sheer on that first coat, but it is very, very shimmery. I wish I had a name for these kinds of shimmers. They're not pearly, but they're not like a very foil metallic either. I don't really have a good word for them. But this kind of finish tends to not show brush strokes, which is nice. Well, they're there when it's wet. But when it's dry, it tends to not show brush strokes. And good formula on this as well. So you can see this dried very shimmery still. I'm going to let that second coat dry completely, because from some angles I can still see some nail line, and from other ones I can't see anything. I think it's going to dry a little bit more sheer than it applies, so I'll probably end up needing a third coat here. Ignore the fact that I tried to pet a cat and got cat hair in the polish on my ring finger, and when I pulled it out, it like dented it. But I don't actually think I'm going to put 3 coats on this polish. You might need 3, just depending on your preference. It's really, really hard to see nail line. I have to like turn my nails to a certain angle and everything, so I don't really think it's worth dealing with an entire third coat. So that is 2 coats of I Believe In Snuffy. The next polish is called Ernie, Your Stripes, and this is an orange with a gold shimmer. So this one is pretty sheer on the first coat. You do get some color and you do get a lot of shimmer, but there's also a lot of nail line showing. It does look like it's fairly even, and good formula on this one also. So this one does start to build up on that second coat, but there is still a lot of nail line showing. I think even a little bit more in person right now than is picking up on the camera. But the orange color is building up really nicely. And Lord. And that gold shimmer that's in there is not glitter at all, so it's not going to be gritty or textured. So the orange and the gold shimmer does build up even more on that third coat, but I can still see a little bit of nail line. It's not terrible, but it is definitely there. If you have much whiter nails or longer nails than I do, it's going to stand out more. And this does dry pretty shiny, but I recommend top coat anyway. Okay, actually looking at this closer, the nail line is very, very minor. On my pointer finger, I feel like it's worse than the rest of them, thinner coats. I always do that, but it's not as bad as I was thinking it was going to be. So that is 3 coats of Ernie, Your Stripes. The next polish is called Beak on Fleek, and this is a, I guess, very Big Bird yellow cream, and this one does dry matte. So this one is sheer on that first coat, and I'm trying to work a little bit faster with it because it does dry matte. I don't want to touch it too much. It's definitely not like other China Glaze polishes in the past where it dries so fast that it's hard to work with, but I'm going to try to touch it the least amount possible because it is still going to dry faster than a regular polish. And pretty good formula on this one as well. So you can see that this dried fully matte, pretty sheer, and kind of streaky. So I'm going to try to build that yellow color up a little bit more on this second coat. I do have a hard time evening this one out, getting all the streaks out. I think with my swatch pictures I had 3 coats, and I still did have a few streaks there. And I have a few here, but we're only on 2. And obviously you can just top coat this if you don't like the matte finish, but I think there are better yellows out there if you're going to top coat it anyway. Actually, there are better yellows out there, and you could just get a matte top coat regardless. I'm not a big fan of this one. So you can see that this dried much more sheer than it was when it was wet, and it is still pretty uneven. So I'm going to add this third coat. I do max out on 3 coats. I feel like 3 coats is totally acceptable, and anything beyond that is insulting. I know I've said that before. So I'm going to try to even this out the best I can with this third coat and then let it dry fully so we can see what it really looks like. And I do have a swatch picture of this with top coat as well. So that actually looks fairly decent when it's wet. I did a little bit of a thicker third coat to try to cover up those streaks, but as it's drying, I feel like I'm going to see a little bit more come out, so I'll come back when it's fully dry. Okay, so this is the final verdict, fully dry. I do still have some nail line. I do still have some uneven spots with this one. So that is 3 coats of Beak on Fleek. So there were 4 polishes in this collection altogether that I really didn't care for. 2 of them were total misses, and 2 of them are more of a personal preference thing, but I didn't realize that I was going to have all 4 of them lined up in a row. So Beak on Fleek, which I just did, was one of my misses. And then this one is also a total miss for me as well. This is a really, really pretty purple shade. It is a jelly polish. It's called I Count Even, but it is very, very, very sheer. So you'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. So here is the first coat. There's practically nothing here. You can see a little bit of a purple shade added to the nail, but not much. I'm all for jellies, and maybe it's because I'm not like a huge nail art person, but I don't really understand what the purpose of a jelly this sheer actually is. Like, I really don't know what you could use it for, because I feel like it's too sheer to use in something like a jelly sandwich, because you would end up layering and layering and layering, and the glitter wouldn't look that different. Good formula on it though. So this is the second coat. You get a little bit more of that purple color, but it doesn't actually build up any opacity. I know I'm like really, really pooping on this polish, but if any of you are nail art people, tell me what you would use this for, because I'm not trying to be a jerk. I genuinely don't know. I do feel like this dries a little bit dull as well, but not terrible. It's not like matte or anything. So in 3 coats, you do still get a little bit more of that purple color, but I don't think that it covers the nail line anymore. I wouldn't even mind this if this was a little more pink. On me right now, it just looks like I'm cold. It looks like my nails are changing colors because I'm cold. So that is 3 coats of I Count Even. The next polish is called Amazing, and this is a very frosty, light purple, kind of pearl-like metallic. So this one covers pretty well on that first coat. A lot of brush strokes through that shimmer though. I'm going to make those as straight as possible. I still think it's going to need 2 coats, but it is very opaque on the first. And good formula on this one as well. So this one does cover completely in 2 coats. Some of those brush strokes did fade, but the deeper ones do stick around. I know you're going to be able to hear that. I know you guys can never hear the sounds that I complain about, but our power went out recently, and now the water softener regenerates at like 10:30 in the morning, and it's right on the other side of the wall, and if you can hear it, I apologize. I genuinely don't know how to make it stop. This one actually looks pretty decently opaque after that first coat. I just had a couple of lighter spots that I wanted to cover up. This is one of those ones I'm not a huge fan of because I don't like the pearly kind of polishes, but to each their own. So that is 2 coats of Amazing. Okay, the water softener has stopped its BS. I waited it out. I ate some food that was like way too spicy for my sensitive palate, and here we are. So the next polish is called Trash Can Do Attitude, and this is a slightly pearly green shade, but it does have a really cool gold flash to it as well. So my brush on this one is a little bit goofy. It does have a few little stray bristles sticking out on it, which isn't the best when you're trying to avoid brush strokes, but I don't really think these are fully avoidable anyway. I'm trying to do them as straight as possible. It is a little bit sheer. This has a little bit more of a shimmery, sparkly finish than the last one. It's not a full-blown pearl-like polish, if that's making any sense at all. So you'll probably have a little bit less brush stroke through this one, but there are definitely still going to be some. Before I move on, I don't know if you can tell, but the polish is running down to the sides of the nail a little bit. You can see it's kind of thicker on the sides. It's thinning out on the top. It's pooling there a bit. That's like a little bit the polish, a lot bit me doing too thick of coats. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so a good amount of those brush strokes actually smoothed themselves out as the polish dried, and I don't hate this as much as I remember hating it when I was doing my swatch pictures. There are still some there, but that gold shimmer, like, it looks really nice, and it makes me not hate the brush strokes that are left. This one does look like it's going to cover completely in 2 coats. I'm going to let this fully dry though, because the first coat seems to be like more gold shimmer than green, and the second coat's looking a little bit more green and less gold shimmer, and I'm wondering if that's going to change when it's fully dry. I didn't do my swatch pictures under these lights. I did them in my living room, so I'm picking up on some things that I didn't notice before. Okay, I might be crazy because I haven't actually compared the 2 clips, but I do think that this one fully dry brought out the gold shimmer a little bit more, and you can see how those brush strokes dissipated. So you know what? I take back everything I said. There were only 3 in this collection that I didn't like, because this one I've changed my mind on. So that is 2 coats of Trash Can Do Attitude. The next polish is called For Real Though, and this is a very bright hot pink. Neon-ish? Yeah, it's a hot pink neon. We'll go there. I'm getting a little more relaxed with what I consider a neon. This actually is a jelly, so it's going to be a bit sheer on the first coat, but it's not a super sheer jelly. It's actually pretty opaque for having that finish. You can't see it on camera at all. There is a bit of nail line showing, but this color is so bright, it's going to really freak out the camera. Actually, let me finish this one here, and I'm going to change some settings. It might look really ugly, but I think it'll show the color better. There we are. Okay, now you can see how sheer it is, even though the rest of everything is way too dark. And a pretty good formula on this one as well. It's also very even, which I appreciate. Okay, so I flooded my cuticle on my pointer finger. I thought I could use a corrector pen instead of getting up and going to get my brush, because walking 2 rooms over just seems like too much work right now. And I just made it worse. So if you see any like blobs, lumps, bumps there, that's what that's from. And I just did it again. So this one, I can still see some nail line on that second coat. The color does build up really nicely, but still not completely opaque. And the polish itself does dry a bit dull as well. And I'm flooding all my cuticles because you get a lot of polish on the brush with this one, and I'm just not quite wiping it off enough. Okay, so you get even more pink, I feel like, out of this, or at least a brighter pink. It's not looking that way on camera at all. It looks a little bit brighter to me in person on the third coat. I can't see any nail line now when it's wet, but I will let it dry all the way to see if that shows through. Okay, so if I look very closely at my ring finger, well, any of my fingers, but I notice it the most in my ring finger, I can see a little tiny bit of nail line, but it is so minor that I'm not really sure it counts. So that is 3 coats of For Real Though. Okay, now we're getting into the fun stuff. The next one is called Monsterpiece, and this is a medium pink with a ton of little tiny holographic flakes in it. This is not glitter, it dries smooth, and it's not textured at all. So this one is in a little bit more of a jelly base, so it is a bit sheer on that first coat. You don't quite have as deep of a color as you do in the bottle. I'm going to fix that side that I got way too close to before it dries. There are a ton of those little holographic flakes in here, and like I said just a little bit ago, these are totally smooth. They're not a glitter at all. And good formula on this one also. So this one does build up really nicely on that second coat. Looking closely, I can't see any nail line. I think I could see where you might need 3 on this one depending on your application and like the whiteness of your own nails, but I don't think it's likely. Color builds up really nicely on the second coat. Flakies build up really nicely. This does dry almost fully matte, so you will want top coat. So that is 2 coats of Monsterpiece. So the next polish is called Living in the Elmo-ment, and this is a very reddy orange base with holographic silver micro glitter. There are 2 different sizes of micro glitter in here, the very fine stuff, and then what I would consider like the line between micro glitter and just like a normal glitter. It's like the biggest size that I would consider micro glitter, and then obviously also the finer stuff that I just mentioned. And I say that because this one is for sure going to dry textured. Very opaque on that first coat. The base that's in there has very saturated. Not so much that it covers up the glitter, but it does, I don't want to say, it does cloud the glitter a little bit with that orange tint. If you think of the My Little Pony glitters from, that wasn't last year, right? A couple years ago? I don't remember. There was a pink and a purple, and they were in a more sheer jelly base, so you got a lot of silver glitter coming out of those. This one's going to be a little bit clouded orange, if that makes sense.
because the base is a little bit more opaque. Good formula on this one though, not too thick, not too thin. So this one does cover completely in 2 coats. Hopefully you can see that texture that the first coat dried with. It's definitely going to need some scrubbing to remove that glitter, and you are going to need top coat and maybe 2 coats of top coat to smooth it out. You can see you get a little bit deeper of an orange with that second coat as well. If I look very, very closely at this, I can pick out a little bit of nail line, but I don't think it's bad, and it's certainly not worth a 3rd coat, because with glitters like this, once you start building up to 3rd coats, plus you need 1 or 2 coats of top coat to smooth it out, it's a lot of polish. So if I can skip the 3rd coat with something like this, I will, if I can get away with it. So that is 2 coats of Living in the Elmo-ment. The next polish is called To Be Sesame, and this is what I believe is a very, very fine silver holographic micro glitter in a green jelly base. So this one is in a jelly base, so it is a bit sheer on that first coat. There's a lot of glitter coming out though. This glitter isn't nearly as chunky as the glitter in the last polish, but it is still going to need a top coat to smooth out, and it is still going to be a little bit difficult to remove. And good formula on this one as well. I feel like these really fine glitters can get thick really easily, and so far this one's pretty good. So this one actually does build up pretty well on that second coat. That first nail looks fully opaque to me. I'm going to keep checking these one at a time to make sure. This is another one that if I can avoid a 3rd coat, I'd like to. Okay, I have a little spot. I don't know if you can see it on the end of this nail. It's a little bit too sheer, but I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to dab a little bit of extra on there. If I look really closely, I might be able to see some nail line, but it's very, very minor. Again, I don't like adding a 3rd coat when I know I'm going to need a thick top coat, maybe another coat of top coat. These finer glitters are less likely to need 2 coats of top coat, but it just depends on what top coat you use. So that is 2 coats of To Be Sesame. The next polish is called Dat Color Dough, and this is a clear base with a really, really, really fine blue glitter in there, like super fine, and then also some slightly larger silver glitters mixed in. They are not holographic, they're just silver. So since this one isn't a clear base, it is going to take a few coats to build up. You could probably use this as a topper since it does seem fairly even. With these really, really fine glitters like this though, I just never see them as a topper. See, there's way more polish on that nail than there was on the other one, so it's much more dense. And a good formula on this one as well, not thick at all for being a lot of glitter. So this one does start to build up on that second coat, but you can still see there are some gaps in that glitter. So it will need a 3rd. The more I look at that first coat, the more I'm unsure about this polish's use as a topper. I certainly think you could get away with it, but I do see some gaps that I think would make it a little goofy looking, depending on your application. I'm not the most even applier ever, apparently. But that's kind of what I was saying about not wanting to use these really, really fine glitters as a topper, because it's fine, so it's looks more sheer, but it's also, there's a lot of glitter there, and it is hard to apply it without gaps. It's hard to get it completely even. So this one does cover completely on that 3rd coat. I'm going to do a little bit of spot treatment on the nails that had thinner coats or had little bare spots left. Actually, I think that might have just been my pointer finger. This is definitely going to need top coat, and it's definitely going to take some scrubbing to remove because it is glitter. So that is 3 coats of Dat Color Dough. And the last polish is called Growver, and this is a very deep, like midnight blue, slightly metallic base with some fine silver micro glitter running throughout it. So this one is also in a more jelly base, so it is a bit sheer on that first coat. You do get a lot of glitter out. The formula is a little bit on the thick side. I don't think it's too thick. I tend to prefer thicker formulas anyway, but it might be too thick in like a couple of uses depending on your preference. It's definitely the thickest one out of the collection. So this one does cover completely in 2 coats. You might have some bald spots and need a 3rd depending on your application, but I really don't think so. This is going to need top coat to smooth out, and it is going to be difficult to remove, but it's not a solid glitter. It's a really fine glitter, and it's a little more sparse in the polish, so it's not going to take quite as much scrubbing as really any of the last 3 glitters will. So that is 2 coats of Growver.
So I think Monsterpiece is going to be my favorite. There were more misses in this collection that I would have liked to have seen. I wasn't like super thrilled with a few of these. I also like inhaled my own spit, so excuse my voice. But I really like this one. I like that it's flakies, like holographic flakies and not a glitter. I think it makes it a little bit easier to use for your average like person that's just gonna walk into Sally's and pick out a color and not really like know a lot about polish. So I like seeing mainstream brands. I think that's why mainstream brands are always a little bit my throat. I think it's why mainstream brands are a little bit safer usually. But I like this because it's smooth and it's easy to use, and I like it better than the glitters anyway, and I think your average person is gonna prefer this over the glitters, if that makes any sense. So Monsterpiece is my favorite. So that is the China Glaze You Do Hue Sesame Street collection. I believe that's the summer 2019 collection. Again, I got those from polishpick.com, so I will link that website down below. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will talk to you later. Bye.